I'm very privileged here today to be joined by two expert guests, not one. Matt Avero Sturm from Sprig, who runs marketing operations over there, and then Julie Oddo, VP Customer Success at Learn to Win. So we're going to give it a few minutes for folks to join us before we get ahead and get started with the Q&A and the session here. But as you're joining in, feel free to share where you're from, which company, where you're dialing in from today. Let us know what questions are top of mind for you. We intend this to be an interactive session. We invite our audience to participate and ask questions of the experts that we have on the panel today. And the topic of discussion is really interesting. We are going to talk about when does it make sense to run with freemium acquisition of a customer model, or paid pilots versus free trials versus POCs, and what do these words all mean? So it's going to be a really interesting discussion today. So let me pause for a moment there and invite Julie to introduce herself. Julie, go ahead. Let our audience know who you are, what you do, and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. Thanks, Asim. So as Asim said, my name is Julie Oddo. I lead customer success with Learn to Win, which is a combination of traditional customer success managers, our professional services team, and technical support. Learn to Win's my third startup. So I'm definitely a startup junkie, as I think they say. I started at Success Factors in the very early days, pre-IPO and pre-acquisition by SAP, then went to a small company called Glint that ultimately got acquired by LinkedIn, which led me to where I am today. And I'm excited to talk about this whole pilot freemium process. Thanks, Asim.
You have an enviable track record from a founder's perspective. The companies you work for exit all very interesting big companies. Great, thank you. Matt, please share your introduction, some of your background, and what you do now.
Yeah, hi, I'm Matt Avero Sturm. Julie, I'm afraid I'm headed down the same startup junkie path as you. I'm at Sprig as our director of marketing operations. We sell a B2B software product for product managers and really all product teams to better understand their users and uncover product experience insights. And as part of my marketing operations role, I work very closely with our growth product team on getting all of our product data into our go-to-market motion and enabling our go-to-market teams to best engage with customers, whether they're free users, freemium users, and so on.
Perfect. So let's take a moment to introduce the audience to the companies that you work for. So what does the company do? What kind of scale you're at? Anything about the origin story that might be interesting to share? Julie, why don't we start with you?
Okay, thank you. So Learn to Win is a micro-learning, sort of last mile learning product is what I would call it. We work with everything from sports teams to large pharmaceutical organizations to the transportation industry. So we're basically a blank slate for any sort of training, but the concept is a combination of interactive learning for the learners, making it more engaging, really easy to build content. We say it's easy enough for a football coach to use. That was sort of our origin, all the way through to some really interesting and insightful analytics. We got started, our two founders met at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where one of them walked onto the basketball team and they handed him a binder on his first day of practice and said, memorize these plays. And he thought to himself, I have to schlep this binder around campus with me. Isn't there an online way to do this? His roommate at the time was actually an education major. They came together, and born from those conversations was early concepts of Learn to Win that was initially sold to football, basketball, primarily high school, NCAA college teams. They reacquainted at Stanford Business School, where they actually won a competition when they on hacking for defense, where they pivoted the platform to teach pilots how to fly fighter planes, and ultimately won $1 million contract. And that's what really prompted the platform. And here we are several years later, sort of in the Series A-ish range where we are right now, but a lot of great traction again with across industries, hospitality, transportation, sales enablement for large pharmaceutical organizations.
Amazing. Football to fighter planes. Very cool. Matt, how about Sprig? Maybe share a little bit about what you do and what space you guys are in.
Yeah, so like I shared, Sprig is a product experience insights platform. So we enable product managers and product teams to launch really targeted in-product surveys, to run session replays connected to those surveys. So if you're wondering why a certain group of customers gave you a really poor score on NPS, you can actually watch their use of the product right before they did it, and also to test out prototypes and concepts. And we work mostly with large B2C digital first companies. So Robinhood, Webflow, Dropbox, Square are good examples of who we work with. And we also have a growing motion with earlier stage tech companies that are trying to iterate really, really fast and need just really integrated insights to do that. So that's definitely part of our freemium motion that we can talk about later.
Awesome. Okay, sounds good. So, we've used the word freemium in the industry. We've talked about free trials. We've talked about POCs or pilots. Take a minute to sort of share your understanding or your perspective on what these different options mean and how are they different. So Julie, if you'd like to maybe go first and share your perspective.
Sure. So when I think of a first experience, I guess is how I would put that with the platform. That's what we're really trying to give a customer, whether we do it through a free trial of some sort or a pilot. It's that first experience. It's that first impression of them getting their, in the weeds, hands dirty. I think that obviously it can range the period of time, free 7 days, free 30 days, paid 30 days, paid 6, whatever those things might be. But to me, the general objective overall is to give prospects that first amazing experience and let them walk away as champions and obviously want more and want to, become an ARR returning customer.
Got it. Cool. And Matt, what's sort of your take? Like, how do you think about the different models that are prevalent in the industry?
Yeah, I guess I think about it from, pilots are generally a facilitated experience. There's a customer success engineer or a sales rep, somebody from the company's involved in a pilot. And that is really the traditional B2B software model. Although I guess there's always been, you could order a Microsoft CD in the mail. So maybe that was some early self-serve motion. But yeah, I think of all of these, whether it's a free account, a free trial, a sort of self-serve pilot, a solo single player subscription. I think of all of those options as sort of how can we deliver value to the user sooner without, and on the timeline they want, and letting them experience the product the way they want without needing to coordinate with, heavy person resources that traditional pilots required. And especially for us, we've just seen that our buyers, especially people working in product, like they're product people, they want to be in the product. They want to be clicking and using and seeing if it works and developing their own opinions. And they don't always want a person in the middle of that.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, Matt, that you're making about people or the end users are now wanting to try the product before they make a purchase decision. And a lot of the buying power has moved from sort of centralized decision making to kind of a decentralized model in B2B and B2C both, where it's the end user in that environment who tries the product and decides whether or not it's something that they want to continue to use and pay for and so on. And so I really like the point that both of you made about the traditional sales model being, a assisted sales model. That's sort of the traditional enterprise model. And then now we've seen two new flavors with the PLG motion or the product-led growth motion. where you either have a freemium model where the product's free forever, or you have a free trial where you go for a certain period of time and you need to convert over to keep using the product. So let's, sort of click through each of those. I know both of you have very different go-to-market models to each other. And so maybe if we could just start there, Julie. You guys have a very long and extended trial process. So talk us through that. What does that look like today?
Yeah, so we do a 60-day paid pilot process. And we do that pretty intentionally. What we actually try and do is you can envision it almost like an entire year of a relationship condensed into those 60 days. So it's almost that entire life cycle. So we do have a CSM assigned. We set goals at the beginning to say, if this pilot's successful, and what would it take for you to say this was a raving success? And that's really the key to it, is identifying that value at the very beginning and saying, if, is it about user experience? Is it about easy to create content? How can we quantify that? Are we trying to save hours here or there? Are we trying to reduce the number of mistakes and highlight where there are knowledge gaps in your team, so that when we come to that insights review, which is sort of aligned to what we would call a QBR later in the process, we can highlight, did we hit the metrics that you said we were off to hit when we kicked off this pilot, 50 days ago, right? So that when it comes, the rubber hits the road, we can say, were we successful, were we not? You sort of told us if we hit these metrics, you were going to be a raving success and you were going to convert. Our goal is to obviously hit that and then move to the conversion. So also being a super small startup, we still kind of want to have that really high touch with our customers, even in the pilot stage, to make sure that they're successful, to answer their questions, to potentially talk about roadmap items. So it works out really well. And the best way I can describe it is really taking that year-long process and condensing it down. And I don't know if you want me to get into the pricing aspect now, Asim, or not, but really
Yeah, we will in a moment, but I think the key point here is condensing that year-long relationship into 60 days. And I'm going to stay on this for a moment before I come back to you, Matt, and try and understand your model a little bit better. But I'm curious, why 60 days, Julie? Like, how did you make that decision? 30 days, 60 days, like that's most companies we see in the B2B domain, usually the outer bound is 30 days. We have a POC process that takes about 30 days. So I'm curious, why 60?
So what we tried to do shortly when I first came in and I was looking at what we were doing and just kind of giving people the keys to the car and letting them try and drive it for kind of random periods of time, we really looked at what the shortest amount of time to value really is. So you think about the value in a learning product. And again, this could vary, the timeline could vary based on the product or service that you're offering. But for us, we need to give the instructors time to build their content. We need to give the learners time to take the content.
Got it.
We need to then, typically we do some sort of a learner survey, and then we loop back and do a insights review. So because there's multiple personas touching the product at various times, and it's important to go through that journey, 60 days, we have done it in 45. We can, if the customer is really ready to rock and roll, but the goal is to make sure that we're touching each part of that journey. Okay.
I have so many more questions for you on that. I'm going to come back to you. Hold that thought. I also want to have Matt introduce their process from a free trials perspective. Very different, obviously. Matt, take us through it.
Yeah, well, first, I think Julie just had the quote of the webinar about, that we can't just give people the keys to the car and let them drive it for a random period of time. That is such a good description of a completely, unmanaged trial process. And I love how you talk about the intention of having a really managed trial process. Yeah, I think everyone's been there with early trial launches, and just who knows how much time people need. In terms of Sprig's motion, I joined Sprig the week that we first launched our product publicly, the week that we launched our free sign-up offering, which was the world's best time to join. And since then, we have always had a free sign-up motion where you can join a free forever account and use it for as long as you like with a decent amount of functionality. And also we've always had a, paid enterprise annual or longer contract, may or may not have a paid pilot period process. And then since then, in the middle, we have gone through a whole lot of motions to determine what is really the best fit for our users, especially keeping in mind that we have these two user personas who have kind of different needs. Like one user persona is the product team or user research team at a larger company, which definitely needs some assistance in terms of getting fully onboarded, having Sprig integrated inside their product, deciding the best set of organizational policies for who can launch surveys and how we analyze the results. And then we also, have our user of more founders or solo product leads at earlier stage companies, and they can just get up and running incredibly fast and don't need any permission about anything. So now the motion that we have is you sign up for a free account, you're immediately provisioned onto a 2-week free trial of a kind of intermediate level account, sort of a self-serve but paid account. And you can get pretty far on that account. There's a lot of functionality, but you can't go over certain limits, and there's certain enterprise provisioning options you can't access. And then you're self-serve onboarded. We have a pretty detailed onboarding flow that does respond to product data. And then after the 2 weeks, that's when our sales team and customer success team will begin engaging more intentionally, which is also around when the user is downgraded to a free account. And there may be interaction outside of it. We also have a lot of product touch points in that time period, so that these self-serve trial and free users, if they're interacting with upgrade related features, they're able to book meetings directly with our team from those features.
Got it. So Matt, I think you guys went through quite a journey to where you got to where you are now, which is effectively a 14-day free trial, and you're assisting the customer throughout the process to encourage them to upgrade if they need help. How did you pick 14 days? Like, I think like that, question comes up a lot in our conversations as well. Like, what's the right time frame? And so what was the mindset, and how did it change over time for you guys, right? So what signals did you pick up on that prompted that change from one type of model to a different?
Yeah, I think the biggest signals were that we've always had people really interested in our free product, and we've always had, great traction with our enterprise product. And where we've had trouble is getting enterprise users who are on the free product to fully adopt it and fully go from a step 1 to step 2 to step 3 process, and kind of onboard themselves to the point at which they're ready for an enterprise contract. We just were not seeing that level of adoption from our potential enterprise customers on the free product. And, it makes a lot of sense. If you're at a large company, you have a large team, functions are relatively siloed, you have a lot of, security concerns around outside vendors and code. Like, of course, you're going to need to talk with someone on our team, and you can't just, cowboy the process and do it all on your own. And as we saw that, we've, really adapted our process to accommodate that. Originally, you couldn't even book a demo with Sprig. So one change is, enabling the ability to book a demo. Another change is putting that book a demo ability directly in the product and directly attached to enterprise features that free users might be clicking on. Let's see. We've also made it so that we have some product demo functionality, so users who might not even get into a free account can still explore the product without even committing to the trial, to really lower the bar for entry there. But yeah, the biggest thing has always been, what can we do to help this potential enterprise group of users get further into the product on their own than they could with the current offering. While still really enabling this, power user non-enterprise group to get a lot of value without cutting that off.
Got it. Okay, so two very different models. Julie, 60 days paid process. I'm going to get to that in a moment here. Talk us through the pricing, and then Matt, it's a 14-day free trial, and then the goal is to kind of encourage them to move to the enterprise offering over time. Now, we have a few people that have joined since the session started. If you're joining us now, feel free to jump in and ask questions in the webinar chat, and we'll make sure the questions are raised here to the panelists. I am curious if any of you are using free trials yourself. There's a question here from Lina. I'm going to hold that for a moment and come back to it. Julie, I want to hear about pricing, right? So your trials are not necessarily free. And that you're trying to establish and deliver some value during that 60-day time frame. So talk us a little bit about how you get paid for that. How do you, and how does it impact your conversion rate? What's the decision process that you went through to say, well, we're going to charge for that 60-day trial, and what do we learn from there?
Yeah. So generally speaking, we try and keep our pilots all to $10,000. Flat rate, $10,000. Full service from, professional services, customer success manager. And the reason we do that is we find that it's not only from more of the traditional lead qualification, budget perspective, making sure they actually, but having some skin in the game gets them to show up to meetings, right? If they know that they have, that we've set this up like a real project, and that we're going to walk them through it, and we are going to have success criteria, and we are going to run this as a real project, and it has some thoughtfulness and some structure around it, with them having some money in the game, some skin in the game. They've gotten some budget, or they have some budget of their own. We know it's likely they're going to have budget going forward. I do have some pretty strong goals for conversion. My goal is 85%. We're about 85% right now for conversion from our pilots. So we are pretty successful. If we get someone to, do one of our trials, which we have a pretty strong rate of getting people to buy into it as well once we get there, has been really successful. They get a sense of our team. They get a sense of the services that they're going to be offered. Yeah, so the $10,000 was, enough for most of these enterprise customers to feel like it's not a drop in the bucket, but it's also not out of their price range. Have we discounted it a few times? Yeah, of course, like anyone else. But we try and say it's a $10,000 standard pilot that we offer our customers. This is the structure of it, and guide them along that path.
Got it. And Julie, just kind of following up on that, 85% conversion at the end of the pilot sounds amazing. That's obviously a great outcome. But in terms of do people sort of drop out of the funnel in your sales process because they have to pay? Like, is it a two-step sales process that they have to go through? Is there some downside to that? Or is it once they agree to a pilot, you have 85% certainty that they're going to continue as a customer. So most of the heavy lifting has already occurred in that first step of the sales cycle. So what's the drop off or conversion rate in that part of the cycle?
From before they even become a pilot customer?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not, if they're getting to the point that we're actually presenting a pilot opportunity to them, it's a very high percentage that they're going to do a pilot with us. We don't hide the fact that our pilots are paid. We talk to them about it's a $10,000 thing right off the bat. Of course we want to jump just to ARR.
Yeah.
But if they're not ready, right, and they say, hey, it might be a newer industry for us to hit or something like that. Some of our large pharmaceuticals now, we have enough large pharmaceutical customers, they, reference customers, they can go right to ARR. But if it's maybe a newer space for us, they're like, hey, we want to try it out. We're not sure about our learners, this or that. Our first couple customers in hospitality, that's where we bring up this pilot and we say, hey, if you want to try it versus rolling it out for a whole year, this is our process to do it. And they're actually really grateful for that, because it's almost like, instead of us buying in for a year, prove us in 60 days that you can actually do this, and then they'll convert.
That makes sense. So it's not a requirement for every customer. It's more if they want to, and you're entering a new market or a new space to prove it out. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, great. And then Matt, coming back to your 14-day trial methodology that you're currently in, does every customer go through that process, or is it more of an optional thing? Or, do customers will just sometimes just jump straight into buying the product directly? Matt, you're on mute. Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, so I do want to talk about that. I definitely want to just circle back to what Lynn said about meeting the team and having that trust. Like with enterprise B2B products in these, 5 figures, 6 figures plus range, like of course the customer success team is so important. And if you have a great product and a terrible customer success team, it is just hard to imagine enterprise relationships going well. So I think one thing that people really don't talk about trials and pilots is the ability to let a great team shine and really get that buy-in and make it really de-risked to sign a final contract. And anyway, I love that you flagged it. I think everyone just wants to talk about the tech side, and the CS side is like, you just cannot win without it, right? Like no NRR, no win. So anyway, back to the 14-day question. So until recently, everyone just joined on the free plan without the trial. The 14-day plan is new. So now everyone joins on the 14-day trial, and all of our legacy free users can opt into a 14-day trial whenever they choose. For us, one big thing that we launched alongside this, and what we actually piloted before doing this, was our mid-level plan, our self-serve, small enough to be able to put it on a credit card. It's a little under $200 a month. And what we really wanted with that was to make sure that a plan that was more than free, but less than enterprise, was something that users could get on, could activate themselves on, could put on a credit card, could get up and running on, with some interaction from our team, but mostly on their own, because we wanted all of these free trial users to be able to upgrade to an experience that they were ready for immediately. We didn't want to just say you get all the bells and whistles and then they're gone, unless you go through if you're a larger company, what might be a longer procurement process. So it was really important to us to have that mid-level, what's called our starter plan, the put it on a credit card plan, so that users can retain all of their free trial benefits as they figure out, if an enterprise plan with its additional benefits would make sense for them. So just in terms of making it a really positive free trial experience, you don't want to just say whoops, that's it. You can't have anything anymore until we talk to sales and have a much more intense engagement.
Got it. Okay. I have a follow-up question to that, Matt, but I'm just going to address the audience for a moment. So there's conversation about Gainsight's Pulse conference next week in San Francisco. We will be at that conference, Gary, and we look forward to meeting with you. Stop by our booth. It's right where the puppies are. So we're just across from the puppies, easy to find. And if any of you are going to be there, please join us. Please come by. Matt, I'm curious. So I'm actually going to build on the question Lina asked earlier about how do you incentivize users to upgrade from free trials? I'm going to build on that a little bit too, is how do you decide what features are part of the free trial versus which ones are part of the paid product? And is there a difference between the two in your case? Because you do have a sort of a tiered approach to moving customers up the value chain.
Yeah, good question. In terms of incentivizing users to move to an enterprise plan, I mean, there's just so many features that enterprise companies need, whether it's the ability to have NDAs embedded, whether it's more admin tools, whether it's just much higher limits, whether it's really enterprise support and customer success engineering. So all of those enterprise plan features, those ones all feel very obvious. Of course, the larger company implementation will need it. And of course, the single player user will not need it. In terms of our free trial and our starter plan, those plans have the ability to integrate Sprig into your product or your website, which really gets at the core value of Sprig. These really targeted surveys, they're really embedded, they're popping up at exactly the right time, and thus the analytics around them are also better. And a lot of our integrations were very integrated into the broader product stack. So whether that's, segment events, letting you target surveys, or reading out all of your results in Mixpanel, running experiments with Launch Darkly and reading survey results with those. So a big benefit of our paid plans is also a much deeper ability to connect it to the rest of your product stack, which is generally also a paid product stack. So
Matt,
just trying to keep.
Sorry, I just want to, sorry to interrupt, but like, just want to ask you a question on what you just talked through. Like, you're connecting your product into several different data sources on the customer side. Are customers generally comfortable doing that self-service and with an online approval flow, as opposed to show me your SOC 2 compliance, report or audit report, et cetera? Like, what does that process look like, getting data access?
Yeah, well, definitely for enterprise customers, there's definitely a SOC 2 report and conversation around that. For our self-serve customers, I think some of them are comfortable just going ahead. Sprig has a pretty large amount of security information available on our website, and I think just the caliber of our partners suggests that we're, as secure as the partners they already have their data on.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, but that is a good example of why we might not pull all of that back to our free plan, because then that's just huge volume of users, much wider group of personas, and a lot more questions that might not make sense to handle at that volume. Got it.
Okay. Julie, tell us a little bit about your process, the 60-day trial that you take the account through. Does that include all of the capabilities of the product, or do you limit either certain features or certain consumption patterns during that trial process?
So great question. We typically during a pilot want at least 35 users on the platform, and likely no more than about 60. So the sweet spot's about 50, hoping about 35 learners will go through. That's sort of a statistical number that makes sense. But that can be fairly flexible. We do, however, not turn on some of the bells and whistles of the platform. There are things like sequential learning or minimum score. There's certain features that we'll save, some advanced analytics features that might take a little more lift from our side, or more training from the customer side, or things that we just think aren't going to add to that value in the really short term, that we just don't turn on during a pilot process. Typically not a problem, though. Customers will ask us about it, we can demo it for them, but there's mostly they just don't make sense to have on during a short little spurt like that.
Got it. And I'm curious, how do you position the free trial to the customer, right? Like, you've got because they're making a significant commitment, you're making a significant commitment, they're giving you access to data, you're training them, you're taking them to the product features, they're trying your product out, et cetera. So what's the positioning? And it's obviously, how's that different from, let's go straight to the product and get you onboarded directly into the product versus going through a trial process? Julie, I'm directing that question to you. Matt, I have a slight variation of that question for you in a moment.
Okay. At first, I thought you were talking about the free piece, so I wasn't sure if you were.
No, the paid trial, right? So, like, how do you position the? It's almost like a sales process in of itself to convince somebody to try out something like this.
Yeah. So, I mean, once during the sales cycle, again, it's sort of like, are we going for an annual deal? Or are we going for a pilot? Once we know we're going into a pilot, we have a pretty good scalable process right now where we're able to define what the content is they want to use on the platform, define who the learners are. Those are basically the various levers, or how many people are going to be accessing the platform. What are we going to be building for those people? And how are we going to evaluate it? And then we have, again, sort of that structure. We have an insights review that we bring in the end. Do they want to do a learner satisfaction survey at the end? We have a template for that. So everything is really well templatized so that the CSMs can really just move through that process pretty seamlessly. And again, I think that if they want to, going back, Matt, to the car analogy, if they want to drive the car, this is the best way. Whether they want to be, we're not necessarily building the content for them. We can if they want us to, but the dirtier their hands get, the more they're actually at the wheel driving, the better we find the process goes. So we want them in the seat. We want to be sort of in the passenger seat as the instructor for them. Make sure they're staying on track with the timeline and everything else. And then the rest just sort of has fallen into place for us.
Got it. Makes sense. And Matt, the 14-day free trial obviously starts in a self-service way from the website. So I'm curious, like, you're responsible for marketing operations. I'm sure you have a strong voice into the messaging, the positioning, and sort of the, where the ad dollars get spent to drive traffic to the site. So what's that the visitor acquisition strategy look like? And what does that conversion funnel look like on the website? How do you continually optimize that?
Yeah, good question. We have really had a few learnings there. So to Julie's point about, again, the car analogy and getting people driving, but also doing it successfully, we have really invested in our templates, both from using them in a marketing perspective and in the product. So we have a library of about 70 product research templates. Questions like, if you're trying to determine your pricing, what questions should you ask users? If users are dropping off in onboarding, like, when should you ask them about it? What questions should you ask? So a really clear set of recipes of how to successfully get product insights. And when we run paid ads, we found that this templates program is a really effective paid ad strategy. So not just run product research, but like use expert templates built by product teams to learn how to improve onboarding, to learn how to, improve conversion. That is a more successful ads strategy because it's very, very actionable. Another thing that we found recently is that it's not everyone wants a free trial. And I think part of the problem here is not all B2B products have free versions yet, right? Lots of B2B products have a free trial and it ends in 14 days. And then it's either credit card or nothing. There's no free forever plan. And Sprig, we've always had a free forever plan. So we just take for granted everybody knows it's free forever, but that's really not the case. So actually, when we launched our free trial, we went really heavy with the free trial messaging, get your 14-day free trial, etc. And we were frankly pretty surprised to see that hurt our conversion rates. Interesting. Because what people thought was that when they saw 14-day trial, they thought 14-day free trial and then nothing, as opposed to 14-day free trial and then slightly downgraded free forever experience. So we've actually learned that the best way for us to go to market with a free trial is free forever, get started free, use Sprig free, get product experience insights free, etc. And make that really clear. And just once someone's converted, make clear, oh, and you get this upgraded free trial for the first 14 days. And, we're sending you onboarding emails about it. We're telling you how to get the most of it, but we're not going to market in a trial first capacity when the free forever approach is just more valuable. Got
it. Okay. Very interesting. So, this kind of leads me into another conversation where a lot of B2B companies have traditionally not had free trials. Several of them have had more sort of your approach that you outlined, Julie, which is either a paid pilot or some sort of a sales assisted pilot, right? So companies that are now starting to think about that, what lessons learned that you would share with companies who are thinking about moving into some sort of introduce the prospect to the product before you take them into a full-blown sales cycle? And I know your response is going to be very different because you have a very different sort of product and go-to-market motion, but what advice would you have for companies that are thinking about this? How should they go about picking which is the right model for them?
I want Matt to go first on this one.
Okay. All right. I definitely have some thoughts here. I mean, I think the biggest thing, and it's so interesting for us, right? We sell to small companies, we sell to large companies, and we have this, various free accounts. And all the time we see companies where someone signs up for a free account and then their colleague signs up a few weeks later for a separate free account. They don't even join on the first one, right? And what I'm trying to illustrate here is it's really important for us that our free accounts have value that single player users can get in the free account and very easily, right? Like I can sign up and get value on my own. I can launch my own surveys, maybe not integrated, maybe not in my product, but I can still get valuable product research insights. And my colleague can go do it on their own and they can get valuable insights on their own. And it's really important that your free motion has a quick time to value for the main set of users that are going to be in there in a single player motion. Like your ultimate buyer and decision maker may be a VP who is never in the product. And that may be the person who is, signing for and running the program of using your product at an enterprise scale. And that is totally great, but your free account is maybe not, they may not be the one signing up for it. So that end user who's signing up has to get, immediate, quick, simple, exciting, fun value from it on their own. So it's really identifying what is that end user value, what is the simplest way to get it without cannibalizing your enterprise product, and how can you make that free experience really validating for that end user getting in and clicking around on their own.
Got it. Okay, makes sense. Julie, what are your thoughts? What's your advice to companies that are thinking about a model like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that although our models are really different, Matt said it really well, that it's really, at the end of the day, it's about what business problems are we solving, and so what value are we going to bring to the table. And the best way that we have found to do that, because it does maybe touch various personas within the organization, between the learner, the instructor, what's the quote unquote ROI, or like we like to talk about it, the cost of doing something correctly or incorrectly in a business. How can we best prove that out and extrapolate that for the person that is ultimately going to need to ask for the check to be written for them? So it's a very actually similar model, I feel like, in terms of thinking about value, business problem, condensing it to the shortest amount of time that you can do that. And, someone had said really early on, building that relationship. Our professional services and CSMs are still really involved with our customers at this stage, and building that relationship really early, if that's a key part of your model, I think is a great introduction during a pilot.
Got it. There's a great question here from Gary. I'm gonna
wait, can I just say something about what Julie said? Because I think this is such a key point. Like the minimum product to value, minimum experience to value is kind of what we're trying to get at here. And like Sprigs happens to be pretty bite-sized, and a solo user can sign up and get it on their own. Right. And Julie's talking about something where the value is a little more organizational based, and it's a little bigger, but it sounds like you've still gotten it to the most bite-sized value you can. And I think that's like, that's the real point here, right? It's like, how can we most bite-sized deliver our promise? Like it's just so exciting. And it's such a, like, even if your company never offers free anything or pilot anything, like it's such a good discipline and exercise to be like, what is the most bite-sized way we can deliver something? Even if for whatever reason we can't do it, it's good to understand that.
Makes sense. I agree. Matt, that's a really good point. And I'm going to direct Gary's question to you in particular, because your product can start with a single product experience or single user experience. And the question is, there are other roles in that buying process that might include admins for your product, or champions, or buyers, decision makers, etc. Is there an opportunity for you to explore through the trial process and who those other participants are? Do you encourage some interaction with them during the trial process? Is there in the product that allows that first user to share capabilities and interactions with other users, other personas in the organization?
Short answer is yes, very much so. We definitely in our onboarding that happens, we definitely encourage users to add colleagues to their account. We often also, once we get an engaged single player user, they're often messaging us and saying, hey, my colleague signed up on this other account. Can you merge all of our accounts together? And it ends up that, 10 individuals at this company, all have their own accounts. But since someone got so engaged in the free product, then they asked us to put those all together. And one of our newer initiatives, back to the theme of users want to explore the product on their own, users want to sort of be in the driver's seat on their buying journey. One thing we offer now is users being able to book, basically sign up for scaled demos with our solutions consultant, with a product expert. So it's not entering the sales process. It's saying, I've signed up for a free account, I'm using it. How can I get an expert live tutorial from our solutions consultant? And then the call to action off of that experience is that's where it really comes to bring it to the rest of the organization. The call to action is, can we set up a lunch and learn for you and everyone else on your team? Can we enable you to be in the buyer's seat of bringing this to the rest of your organization and letting you decide how to bring other folks in? So we've definitely tried to set up a lot of paths for users to be the champions in that process. And so far, there's been a really strong reception to this, yes, also, I mean, these users on these scaled demos, they're jumping in, they're asking questions, they're asking about pricing, they're asking for the recording to send it to their team. It's just, it's so great as a marketer to just get to be a facilitator of that experience rather than to be pushing users the whole time.
Right. Awesome. Okay. So I know we could go on a long time on this fascinating topic, and I wish we could. I'm having so much fun just learning from both of you on how you're running these operations on yours, each one of your respective companies. But I want to really thank you both for your time. Now, if people have questions for you, what's the best way for them to reach you? Would you be comfortable sharing your LinkedIn profile on the chat session in case people want to reach out to you afterwards?
Of course.
Okay, great. Awesome.
100%.
So,
Let me just.
While you're doing that, to our audience, thank you again for joining us. Some of you have been with us now for multiple series. Gary, BJ, Michael, Lina, thank you so much for joining us today. Andre, it's nice to meet you. Please share and spread the word about this series with your colleagues and friends. We will share a recording of this in a day or two, so you'll have that in your inbox shortly. And look forward to another session 2 weeks from now. Next week, we're going to be at the Gainsight conference in San Francisco called Pulse. So if you're going to be at that conference, come visit us at our booth by the puppies. And we look forward to seeing you there.